Devlog 14. Quick reminder, the portfolio is already live and you can test it on brunosimon.com. What I'm doing now is finishing the Devlog series and we are getting close to the end. In this episode, we are going to stray away from the usual 3D, JavaScript, three.js and Blender stuff to talk about sound design. I have to warn you, I'm such a noob when it comes to this topic. But before we talk about sound design, I need to apologize for a mistake I said in the previous devlog regarding the blur nodes. Back then, I said that the box blur was cheaper than the hash blur. But after checking the code for both, I noticed that it's not that simple and it depends on the exact setting. As an example, a box blur with a size of 2 will sample the textures 25 times. While a hash blur with a repeat of 25 will also sample the texture 25 times. In this case, the hash blur can be considered as less performance since the logic to do the samples is more complex than a simple grid, but this can be compensated by lowering the repeat a little bit. Overall, it's easy to do performance mistakes when we only assume the algorithm. So it's better to dive in the code in order to have a true understanding. After realizing that, I did a little bit of testing and switched back to the hash blur for both the water surface and the depth of field with a repeat to 25 because I like how crisp the result look and 25 shouldn't affect performance much compared to the previous box blur setting. You might not see much of a difference because of the video compression, but I invite you to test on the live version. Alright, let's get back to the sound design with the easy part, because it's the one I didn't do, the music. The song you are listening to right now is one of the 3 beautiful songs made by Kunin just for this portfolio. Kunin is a teacher and composer who worked on many projects and some that you might actually know already, like Messenger or Mindventer. But the one project that made me discover Kunin works is Tiny Delivery. I love the style of this game and I really enjoy the music. So I reached out to the developer and he told me he often used musics from a pack on the Unity asset store, made by Kunin. So I commissioned him to do some songs. And a few weeks later, it was done. I wasn't inspired for the names, but since there was 3 songs and I had 3 dogs, I assigned 1 dog name to each one, according to their temper. The song you are hearing right now is Bagheera. And by the way, they are under CC0 license. You can take them and do whatever you want. Check the link in the description. Remember the jukebox I added in the bowling area? Now you know what it was made for. Interacting with it plays the next song in the list. Finally, I displayed a little notification on song change using the same system as for the achievements, but with a different style. It's funny how you experience game when you build one. At this time I was playing Arc Raiders, and I was a lot more attentive to the audio. So let's take this game as an example. In the lobby you can hear people, announcement, mechanism, footsteps. In the storm you can hear the wind in the leaves, far away thunder, rain, metal sheets being torn in the wind. Even when it's calm, there are some ambient sounds. But at night it's almost too quiet. Even the UI, when you hover something, click somewhere,
What do you need?
or when the server is ready. Sounds really help to have immediate feedback. And I'm not even talking about the musics. Anyway, I had a lot of work ahead, but I'm glad I'm not building a AAA game. I started by listing sounds categories and gathering assets. The goal here was to trigger ideas and to anticipate features I would need. And here's the list. As always, I'm using a Notion page, and every sound came from Envato's huge audio library. I created an audio class. This is where I handle the musics I mentioned earlier, and I added a register method. The idea would be that every component of the portfolio can register sounds by itself, keeping the logic well organized and compartmented. I used the Three.js library to load and play sounds. It's stable and has all the features I needed, which I will talk about a little bit later. In this audio class, I also handled muting. We can control it from the intro button I mentioned in a previous devlog by pressing M, but also from the modal. The mute state is being saved in local storage so that it stays muted when we reload the page. I also muted the sound when the page is inactive using the blur and focus events on window. Back to the register method. This is where all the magic happens. But instead of listing everything it does, how about we discover some of the sounds I implemented and unravel those features. Okay, this one looks simple, but there is actually a lot to say about it. In the project's area class, I registered the sound. It's a simple metal against metal hit sound. And I also set a position and a distance fade. Those two properties enable directional audio. But first, I would recommend you to use earphones or a headset if you really want to enjoy this part. The idea with this directional audio is what you probably guessed. If the sound emitter is on the right, you will hear it on the right speaker, and vice versa on the left. But should it be related to the camera or the car? I tried from the camera, but it was barely noticeable. So I tried from the car, and it was weird and unrealistic. So I did a mix of both. By the way, I'm talking about the car, but it's actually the focus point that you can see here. Three.js already integrates directional audio, and it's quite simple. We need to set the position with the pause method and provide XYZ coordinates while considering the user to be at the 0 coordinate. In other words, I need to convert the position of the sound emitter to be relative to the camera, which can be done thanks to the camera matrix word inverse. But as I mentioned earlier, doing so makes the effect barely noticeable. To fix that, I normalized the position and I reduced the z-axis, the one going forward, to a very little 0.1, which is like moving our ears very close to the scene. Emitter in front of the camera will still sound like they are in front, but if they start moving to the side, it will feel like they are shifting away much faster. As for the distance fade, I used it to remap the distance between the focus point and the emitter so that the further we are, the dimmer the sound. And by the way, if the emitter moves, it works. In the register method, I also added a onPlay method, allowing to tweak the sound right before it plays. In the case of the metal hit sound, it was the opportunity to slightly tweak the volume and rate to create subtle variations. It's a well-known trick to avoid the user getting crazy while hearing the same sound again and again. The code you just saw is actually not the final code. It's not position, but positions, plural. And it's because I wanted to be able to reuse the same sound for multiple sources, just to save on performance and memory. The trick isn't too complicated. I do the same thing as before, but only on the closest position from the list. Unfortunately, I only use this feature with the oven fire for the project Forge and for the cookie stand. But it's there if I need it again. All I had to do was to make sure that the fade distance is low enough or the emitters are far enough so that we can't hear a sudden change of direction. Also note the autoplay to start the sound immediately after we close the intro, and the loop so that the sound keep playing in loop. Speaking of the cookie oven, when we accept a cookie, I play this little ding sound. Knowing user will smash the button, use both the keyboard and the mouse, or even use a script, the sound can become overwhelming. So I added a anti-spam. This value is how long to wait before the sound can play again. In this case, it's small enough to not be noticeable and not bother the user too much. For the lab area, I had this scrollable section, and I used this sound, which is actually a wooden cart riding on cobblestone. Obviously, I wanted to hear it only when we scroll. So I created a onPlaying method, not to confuse with onPlay, to tweak the sound on each frame when it's playing. And I remapped the speed of the scroll to tweak the volume and the rate. Now onto a little bit of editing. I found this honk sound just annoying enough, but it wasn't looping properly. And I wanted the user to be able to just long press the honk key until everybody in the room hates him. Not knowing much about audio editing, I opened up Audacity, duplicated the track, did a little bit of cutting and fading, and there you go. So, did it work? Do you hate me now? But now, look at this animation when we navigate in the project. There is no way I could find a perfect sound matching this animation, and Audacity felt a little bit too limited. Fortunately, I remember an advice a friend of mine gave me a while back, which was to use GarageBand, and he was right. This software is simple enough for newbie like me and powerful enough to create complex sounds. And the cool part is that we can add a video preview so that we can time the sound very precisely. I gathered a bunch of sounds like mechanism, metal, wood, and started assembling them. It was at this exact moment that I really enjoyed doing sound design. And here's the result. Maybe it's not perfect, but I'm proud of it. Feeling confident with GarageBand, I tackled the reveal sound. Hear how it goes. The whoosh could use some work, but I like it. And do you like this little drop with reverb? Well, there is a problem. Can you guess? At this exact moment, the user didn't interact with the page, and I can't play sound. What a waste. Anyway. I mentioned the honk, but there are many more sounds related to the car. You can hear pistons when using hydraulics, springs when the wheel touches the floor, pebbles friction when driving around, more violent pebble friction when braking or drifting, the engine runs a muscle car noise that I modulate according to the acceleration. With a spinning sound made from a glass stone scrubbing on whatever surface. And for the boost, a crackling and spinning electric mechanism. And all together, when the night falls, I play a wolf howling sound with the position being in a random angle around the focus point. Same thing when the day starts, where you can hear a rooster Cocorico. During the day, I play various bird tweets, again coming from random angles. And during the night, owls and crickets. For the UI, a simple click sound. And I played it at a different rate when it's to close something like a modal or leaving the project or lab area. For collisions, I registered a total of 14 different sounds since I expected the user to collide with a lot of things. 4 for solid brick-like objects, 3 for metal objects, and 7 for whatever objects like trees, scenery, etc. And it's the opportunity to introduce groups. When registering a sound, I can also provide a group name. When multiple sounds are part of the same group, I can call group play random next to play a random sound but different from the last one. And this example also supports 2 parameters, the force of the collision and the position that I get from Rapier collision event. And it goes on and on with the shore, the rain, campfire, confetti, overlay, lightnings, explosions, whispers, magic chimmers, ball rolling, bowling pins, circuit stuff, career stuff, and that. Oh, and I forgot to say, the audio also slows down on bullet time. I love it. I really enjoy doing sound design, and I hope I will get more opportunities to do it again. It's far from perfect, I know that, but I'm proud of the result. To finish the devlog, how about we enjoy a minute of chill ambient sound? Alright, time to conclude this devlog. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a like. Follow me on X or Blue Sky for more creative and coding stuff. Don't forget that the portfolio is already live on brunosimon.com, and I will see you in the next and probably final episode.